South Africa's first haul of COVID-19 vaccines has arrived. While there's been much talk about the efficacy of various vaccines, Professor Willem Hanekom of the Africa Health Institute takes a comparative look at various big league vaccines, their pros and cons, and what scientists know about them. Professor Hanekom, good evening, and thank you so much for your time tonight. Of course, the process of getting people vaccinated is going to provide more data of which we can work from. That will determine and give a clear picture of the efficacy of some of the vaccines that are coming into the country.
That's correct, yes. We actually have results from quite a few vaccines already from clinical trials that have been done, and they can guide us. And obviously the vaccines would not arrive here if they were not shown in these clinical trials to work. So the efficacy has been shown to be between 50% and 95% of these different vaccines. And we know that if a vaccine has an efficacy of greater than 50%, it's going to make a dramatic difference to the epidemic. But perhaps the best news is that regardless of whether the efficacy is 50% or 90%, virtually all the studies so far has shown that the vaccines prevent severe disease. So severe disease that get you into ICUs, that get you to suffer greatly from this virus, or even preventing death. So that's the good news. All the vaccines so far seem to work pretty well.
Of course, that in itself is something that will be beneficial, I imagine, even for South African scientists, those that have been working on the Novavax vaccine at Wits University. And I'm also thinking about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Are we likely to see those vaccines coming on board into the South African market soon, because they themselves are hovering around that 50% margin and even above when it comes to the efficacy so far?
Correct. I think it's very likely that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will come to us because this is only a single dose. This is different from all the other vaccines that are out there, and logistically it makes it much easier to use that vaccine ultimately. So at the moment it looks like we're going to get some of the AstraZeneca vaccine, the one that you're just showing right now, delivered from the plane, and we are going to get some of the Pfizer vaccine, and we will have to see which other vaccines have been secured by the South African government.
How important is it going to be able to track the data of what the impact of any vaccine that is used in the country is?
Oh, it is critically important, and it's especially important right now because, as you know, we've got a variant of the virus. It's still the same virus, but it's just slightly changed, that has become dominant in our country. And this variant spreads much more easily from person to person, doesn't cause more severe disease, it looks like at the moment. But because it's changed, we want to make sure that these vaccines still work against this variant. So the preliminary results from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the Novavax vaccine suggest that it still does work, not as well as we would have expected, but it still works against this variant and prevents severe disease, which is the important part. Now, once the vaccines get rolled out, we need to have systems in place in our country so that we can look exactly what happens. And if we have to modify vaccine approaches, we need to pick this up very quickly with our systems. And at the moment, there's active planning ongoing with various researchers in the country to be able to do this monitoring. We call it surveillance of what's happening with the vaccine rollout.
Professor Hanekom, a lot of people also ask questions about side effects, right, and whether or not there will be any severe adverse side effects from these vaccines. What do we know about what the decision in Germany has been to not vaccinate people over the age of 65? And let's also talk about those countries that are saying pregnant women should not be given vaccines.
Yeah, so I think the issue about the people who are over 65 does not really have anything to do with side effects, but has more to do with that this study in which the clinical trial in which this vaccine was evaluated did not have many people that were over 65. And Germany therefore decided they would wait until they have more data, because remember, those were preliminary results, before they recommend that that vaccine be given to people over 65. Most of the other vaccines that have reported early results already, there were enough people in the older age groups. Now, when it comes to side effects, most of these vaccines are completely safe, or they are all completely safe. Most people who will get the vaccine will have no side effects, okay? Some people may have mild symptoms, especially at the injection site, or they feel fluey for a day or two, but that's about it. That's what we've seen. Severe side effects have happened. They are extraordinarily rare. So one of the side effects that has been described has been anaphylaxis, which is basically a state of shock that your body goes into. That can, for example, also happen after you get penicillin and you're allergic to penicillin. But we know that this is so rare that it's more common that you, for example, get penicillin and develop anaphylaxis, which is extraordinarily rare to start off. That's more common than it would be for you to develop anaphylaxis after you get one of the new COVID vaccines. And it usually happens in people that have previously had severe allergic reactions.
Professor Willem Hanekom, he is with the Africa Health Research Institute. Professor Willem Hanekom, let me thank you so much for your time tonight on The Pulse.